Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Supatease here with another video, and in this one, I'm going to be going over the Discipline Priest once again, another PvP 3v3 arena guide. In this one, I'll be playing with an Enhancement Shaman and an Arms Warrior against the likely most popular comp in the game right now, Fire Mage, Windwalker, Holy Paladin, running you through my thoughts on how to defeat this formidable composition that has been absolutely destroying both tournaments and the ladder. So very important to have strategies to deal with this composition as a Discipline Priest, or just as any composition or class in general. Particularly against mages, I enjoy running Thought Steal, but I need to play Trinity to play more mana efficiently, so my atonements will be lasting longer and I won't have to be refreshing them so frequently. I do run Ultimate Radiance as an emergency heal, as this composition can do a ton of damage between Combustion and Zwen. However, you do want to try and avoid using Radiance as much as possible. It is absolutely a last resort. It is a very good heal if you're a newcomer or Discipline Priest as well, though. If you're just jumping in for the first time and it's feeling a little bit too intense, then I would recommend using Ultimate Radiance and Radiance more frequently. But when you're playing with hybrids like Enhancement Shamans, Rets, and Ferals, they can pick up that burst healing. So you're just filling in the gaps when the burst damage is really high. Against this composition, they like to just kind of avoid damage, kite around the outside of the map, and win on mana. Because of this, as a Discipline Priest, you are going to need to try and set up drinks with your team throughout the fight, or at least towards the middle or the end of a game. So you really want to be paying attention to that. Generally, the Windwalker is a better target than the Mage, as the Mage is quite durable with Triune Ward shields and mobility. The Mage will pull your team into bad positions. So if you have the ability to, you would rather use crowd control like Hex. However, if the Mage is playing aggressive, like this Mage in this position, pushing towards me for crowd control, attacking the Mage is a good way of pushing them back. But as soon as they've kited far away, you want to switch to the closer target, which can be the Windwalker. This is also the case if the Windwalker teleports away. The start of the game, you are very afraid of Zwen. We can see it here on my Omnibar. This is the scariest cooldown on their team. You want to respect it with a medallion. So my Shaman uses medallion and astral shift. This is more than a fair trade. Even with that trade, you may be in trouble. So utilizing other big heals. So my Shaman uses Chain Harvest, the Shaman Venthyr ability. This allows us to recover through both the Combustion, Meteor, and Zwen. That's the three heaviest hitting attacks available on their team. You can track it using Omnibar. Check out my add-on video. But in this position, you can see we've now opted to Hex the Mage, Fear the Paladin, and isolate the Windwalker Monk and try and burst them down. Now they've traded defensive cooldowns. This is Dampen Harm. It reduces damage by a significant portion. Probably not going to kill through it. And you can see in this emergency situation, I've dumped both of my Radiance charges. Storm, Earth, and Fire, this pink icon, is another one that's quite a scary cooldown. You can utilize your Psychic Scream on that. If the Windwalker is attacking you, you can fear these images, but if they're not close by, you may need to use a cooldown like Pain Suppression. At this point then, I try to push towards the Paladin and get a fear, even though it's on diminishing return. Because Turbo does such an immense amount of burst damage, my team said that they had to go. I wanted to just get a half fear. I used Thought Steal to steal Polymorph so the Mage can't sheep us on our Bloodlust or sheep us on our Doom Winds. And then I want to try and spam that Polymorph as much as I can before it runs out. Use Shadow Word Death to avoid Ring of Frost, and make sure you tell your team you're going to do that so that they don't use interrupts. You want to be telling your team that you can death a poly when you're not already in a crowd control. But if you're stunned, you want to tell your teammates to use interrupts and to assist you a bit. But here you can see the Mage is playing aggressive, and so is the Windwalker, so you have a choice. You could attack either one. Here we opt to Hex the Mage, crowd control. However, the Windwalker, you can see, is already running away. And this game is quite even on mana at this point between the Discipline Priest and the Paladin in terms of mana, but you want to be ready because the Monk can port. And you see how far away the Monk is? If my team goes all the way in behind that pillar right now, they're going to be in for a world of hurt. So you just go to the Mage, you start attacking the Mage. The Mage will either push on top of you and take a lot of damage to sheep, or continue running. And then if they all start running, you want to drink. But in this case, they don't. The Mage uses 2 blinks to go on top of me. We stun the Monk to try and prevent damage while I'm getting polymorphed, but I ultimately did use my medallion here, mostly because my Warrior and my Shaman don't have one, and I was going to be crowd controlled for a very long time. So I utilized Psychic Scream on the Mage after breaking out to try and just stop damage, slow crowd control, get into a better position, and now we're again attacking the Windwalker, who is kind of the priority kill target unless the enemy team is stacked up and you're in a confident position where you have medallions, which we have none of. This is a very scary position to be in against a Fire Mage Windwalker when no one on the team has medallions is likely because my warrior and shaman used theirs at the same time. So you just want to avoid damage at this point. Try and drink. Tell your shaman that you're trying to drink so they can try and avoid pressure. The warrior can use intervene. The shaman can use healing surge. You want to just bait the other team to come on top of you, because that's the best way to do damage to them as a melee cleave. If you're always hunting them down, you run out of mana, you compromise position, it's not going to be a good time. Here, the mage blinks on top of me, and my shaman turns to interrupt and crowd control the mage on the polymorph, however, gets counterspelled. So I try to use death. The mage fakes the death, so I tell my team Shadow Death was faked. So if we can try to utilize something else to prevent the incoming crowd control, which is a Ring of Frost, it ultimately lands. And because this landed on both of us, our warrior has to use Die by the Sword, although it ends up being more than fair because they used Combustion. So you can use Intimidating Shout like this as the warrior to peel Combustion and peel the Windwalker. It's generally not a bad idea if you just want to focus on defense when you're playing Turbo Cleave or you're playing Ret Warrior, some sort of hybrid melee cleave. You want to just be as disruptive as possible as the warrior. And then here I see an opening. They've just used all their cooldowns aggressively. I can sneak up on the Paladin, get a Psychic Scream. I was on Polymorph DR, and I end up getting a Divine Shield. However, it is very hard to find those moments against a good Windwalker mage. But now that the monk is ported, you can see the monk is behind the pillar. You don't want to chase behind the pillar. The mage is in the middle of the map. Start just blasting the mage. The main name of the game here is to just max out your damage on whatever is able to be hit, and then stack them up. They're all going to eventually retreat into a clump, and then when they're in a clump, that's what you like to see as a warrior cleave. Here the mage blinks on top of me for polymorph. I should have deathed this. This is likely just a lower lack of awareness because I didn't death it. My shaman has to use Astral Shift. However, it's Zwen here with a 1:53 timer on it, so trading a trinket and a wall for that cooldown is always going to happen even if you're not polymorphed. But now my warrior doesn't have many cooldowns. I'm crowd controlled with no trinket. Basically telling my shaman to use all Maelstrom on healing if available. We use Rallying Cry. You may want to tell your warrior to use Spell Reflect even in this position. But now that the Paladin is pulled far away, the Mage and the Windwalker are close to each other, you have a choice. So you can Hex the Mage, which is what we do, and then stun the Monk. This isolates the Monk, preventing the Mage from polymorphing. And then I use Thought Steal to steal polymorph from the Mage so they can't crowd control us on our attack. And during this time, you can be a little bit more aggressive while Thought Steal is active because the Mage can't polymorph you either. But you just want to tell your team that you've stolen it so they're not sitting there waiting around to kick it. During this time, you can use Wind Shear on the Paladin heals instead to try and get pressure. And you just want to spam polymorph on as many targets as possible. I start pushing forward to try and get a polymorph onto the Paladin, but I think my Thought Steal ends up running out maybe right as the last second. Maybe I managed to actually sneak this in. So fearing the Mage and then polymorphing the Paladin on a Dispel, you can get really aggressive and creative with the crowd control when you have that polymorph. But as soon as that's gone, I need to get back to the pillar. So I'm starting to take the Windwalker's pillar over here to the left because it would be way too far, and I don't want to play on top of the Paladin. I want to play max range. I want to try and drink, and we ultimately are trying to win on mana, attacking the closest target. If you try to play too aggressive, you get overwhelmed by burst damage, especially if you don't have medallions. So I'm telling my team, I'm trying to drink, I'm trying to drink, I'm trying to drink. The benefit of also drinking, not only that you'll get mana, the enemy team is baited to keep attacking rather than running away. And the main advantage to their team and their composition is that they're so mobile to run away that it's hard to catch them. So it's almost a bit of a bait. You're not necessarily drinking just to try and get mana. You're drinking to get the other team to stop playing defensive, because if you have mana as a Discipline Priest, your team is never going to die, which is a big threat to them because the mana nerfs to Paladin. If you drink and their Paladin doesn't, they're going to be in a tough spot. You can see we're actually pretty even at this point. I'm just line of sighting polymorph. I can use body and soul powered shield on myself to sprint and line of sight. Then I run back to my team. This way my teammates can assist me with interrupting incoming crowd control. You always want to be in line of sight of your partners when you're playing with hybrid DPS and warriors. Never just isolate yourself behind the pillar. But as an emergency, I did use Radiance here. It might have been unnecessary. I really wanted to get my team aggressive as we'd been kind of posted up on this pillar for quite some time. I have my medallion. We've hexed the mage. We stunned the monk. Really good cross crowd control. You don't really need to care too much about the paladin. You're trying to just kill through the healer's healing. You want to stop the attackers from running away and stop the attackers from stopping your damage as a cleave. That is more important than stopping the healer generally, especially against a comp like this that's so mobile and so durable in the current meta. And then at this point I have a choice. I could go back and drink. or we could push on top. My mana's not in the best position here, so I drop a barrier and I dispel my warrior and tell my team I'm running to drink. So I gave them a defensive cooldown. They're all at full health, and I'm warning them, and I start drinking. And also what ends up as a result of this is the monk rolls in to try and stop me because they know it's a threat if I get mana. But when they roll in, they overextend from their paladin, take a ton of damage, and have to run away. So the trade-off is that I'm going to get mana. And it's a huge advantage to have mana as a discipline priest. I really like being a priest in the matchup against mage because you have a lot of ways to outplay polymorph, and you can just pump out a lot of extra ranged damage. You can opt to run the double dispel honor talent. I wasn't in this game because I was worried about getting overwhelmed by Zwen, and that's why I actually ended up gripping my shaman. It was a little bit early. I think if I had waited until Zwen was popped to use life grip to pull the target away from the tiger, that would have been better. But I was trying to preempt an incoming stun. And then at this point, it's just do damage, attack the closest target. I got mana back. Their paladin's at 10%. We don't need to worry about interrupting too much, although we did end up win-sharing the paladin. You can do that. Thought Steal's coming up in 2 seconds, so if I steal polymorph away from the mage, then we no longer need to allocate kicks towards polymorph. And because we have Thought Steal, it's a really good time to either go aggressive, get damage and end the game, and we have a mana advantage. So we can remove all their crowd control. They've got no more gas in the tank to keep healing, and I can just remove the ability for them to stop us from doing damage, and we're going to overwhelm them and run them over, and this will work going into dampening as well. This has been a really good strategy in general for my team. Here my shaman uses Trinket Wall again on that Zwen. You can see 2 minutes is lined up perfectly. My warrior also uses Medallion, but it's likely because they're swapping to the warrior during intervene, which is a good tactic to try and counteract warriors, is to swap to them when they intervene their target. You get double damage effectively if you're AoE or something like Fist of Fury. But then I steal polymorph and I try and polymorph their paladin. We hex the mage, and then we stun the monk. Now all 3 targets are in crowd control. This is a very scary situation for their team, especially when they're completely out of mana. It's very important to coordinate crowd control. I then try and jump on the paladin using Door of Shadows. This will crowd control the paladin for 2 seconds. I can then fear the paladin out of this Door of Shadows Disorient. I use the fear to interrupt Ring of Frost as well. I just don't want that extra crowd control down on the ground. And I don't really want to use a polymorph here because we're trying to kill everyone really on their team. The paladin's not going to be polyed for too long, so I just let the Thought Steal run out. I will use Radiances towards the end of here because this is the final push. This is the final stretch. We finally have the paladin out of mana. I have the tiniest bit left. I still have a medallion to break out of crowd control, which I think I end up using at some point, pain suppression, and I'm just trying to keep my team in the game. Aggressive at this point. We've basically banked up all our defensive cooldowns. We banked up a bunch of mana. We ran them out. It's time to go in, chop them up, and you can see we actually just killed a mage. Without any crowd control, the paladin can't even cast with Divine Favor because they're so out of mana. And I think as a melee cleave, this is a really good strategy, is to incorporate a discipline priest to deal with these paladin mages, because it gives you a bit of extra damage and it gives you the ability to remove polymorph so that the enemy team can't just spam poly on you, get behind the pillar, and start drinking. I've been having a lot of fun with priest melee cleave. I've seen other priests running with rep paladins again and ferals. I like this warrior enhancement shaman one in particular because the synergy between the warrior and shaman helps each other so much that I can be a lot more free to do damage, a lot more free to go get drinks, which then shores up the weaknesses of my class. So it's interesting how the synergies work so well together, and I've been having a really good time trying to push to as high of a rating as I can. 3K is the main goal at the moment for my priest. If you want to follow along for that, twitch.tv/Supatease. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment down below if you'd like to see more videos like this with a discipline point of view. I plan on making a more thorough guide of like talents, soulbind conduits, honor talents, but I just enjoy making these little run-throughs, and I hope that they're useful to somebody out there trying to learn to play discipline priest. Other than that, thank you very much for watching. Subscribe to the channel, just let you know when the videos go live. Other than that, I will see you later. Peace out.